Good morning and welcome to my show. I'm your host, Danny Graham, and I both invite and encourage you to walk with me on the road to wisdom. Come on, y'all. Let's walk. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is February the 28th, Wednesday morning, and I'm your host, Danny Graham, and I welcome you to another edition of The Road to Wisdom. Now, I'm going to start a 12-part series today, a 12-part series. And I'm going to name that series, title that series, Slaying the Giant, Slaying the Giant series. We all know what a giant is. We all know that in the Bible that David slayed Goliath. A lot of times when people have different addictions, different problems, different issues, when they're able to overcome that, they can use a metaphor and metaphorically speaking, say, well, they slayed that problem, or when they did something good, they slayed it, all kind of different things. But in this particular series, I'm talking about different issues and problems that we all have from time to time in our life and how we cope with them and how we slay them and how we put them behind us. And the first emotion, the first issue and problem I'm going to talk about is anger. As you see it right here, Slaying the Giant series part one, we'll be speaking on anger. Anger. We all have been angry from time to time. You know, if you watch the old TV show, The Incredible Hulk, whenever he became angry, he began to bust out his clothes, began to turn green. He went from a 6 foot tall man to an 8 to 9 foot tall man. He went from roughly 200 pounds to over 500 pounds, incredibly strong. Now, if we all did that, the world would be in trouble because we would destroy everything. But we become angry. Sometimes we say things, sometimes we do things that can be just as damaging as the Incredible Hulk. The tongue, definitely. The tongue can speak life and death. Sometimes when we're angry, we say things we don't want to say. And sometimes we say things that we don't mean to say, but you can't unring a bell. Once you say it, it's out there in the atmosphere. Once it leaves your mouth and it touches someone's ear, they can forgive you. And a lot of times they will forgive you. Sometimes they won't forgive you, but they will not forget because when you have that tone, you have that venom, you have that animosity, you have that anger. Sometimes that can be as hurtful as a punch, a slap, a whipping with a belt or a switch. Sometimes those words, man, they can cut to the bone, metaphorically speaking, that is. And words, man, it says sticks and stones can break your bones, and words never hurt me. But that is so untrue. Words, man. Sometimes a word, where it's said, how it's said, when it's said, can be damaging. Sometimes it can be um, irreparable. So, of course, I'm going to give you the definition of anger. And anger is a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. Anger. Definition is a definition. The definition is a strong feeling of annoyance. When you're annoyed, you get angry. When you're displeased with something, you become angry. Or when you have that anger, sometimes you can be very hostile. Come out in a very hostile way. There's several scriptures that talks about anger, and I'm going to read to you a couple. This comes from the book of Proverbs, the 15th chapter, the first verse, and it says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. A soft anger, sometimes a soft answer. When someone says something to you, a lot of energy, and they come into you, man, with this attitude and stuff, sometimes depending on how you respond back to them, the tone that you have, you know, the three words I say, the tone, your delivery, and I always forget the third one, but it's tone, delivery, and approach. You have the right tone, you have the right delivery, and the right approach. Sometimes you can curtail that. You can bring that energy down, and sometimes it can just take the wind out the sail, but take the wind out the proverbial sail. There's someone coming there angry, but it's depending on how you respond to them, your tone, your approach, your delivery. Sometimes you can confuse the situation and it can make a bad situation very, very, very manageable. So again, that comes from the book of Proverbs, the 15th chapter, the first verse. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Sometimes in law enforcement, I've seen officers come out there, you had the situation under control, but somebody come out there and I call it an accelerant. I always tell my supervisors that work for me. As a supervisor, you need to be the fire extinguisher. You don't need to be the accelerant. Accelerant is something that when you add to fire or it can cause a fire, it makes it worse. Supervisor should never be the accelerant. If supervisor comes out there on the scene and he or she causes the situation to be even worse, then they're a bad supervisor. Supervisor should always be trying to knock it down, trying to keep it under control, try to keep it manageable, try to take out all these feelings and stuff, and try to do something in a very professional, in a very calm and cool manner. But sometimes, man, you say something wrong, and man, it makes the situation worse. The situation could already be calmed down, already be resolved. But a supervisor comes out there, or another officer comes out there, or another person, and it ain't gonna be in law enforcement, but a church member. It could be at your regular job. You could be a dock worker. You could be working in a fire department. You could be working in a office. And sometimes situations with dealing with customers, a situation where a clerk can have the customer calm down, and somebody come there, a manager or another employee, and they'll stir it back up and get the person re-energized and just make the situation worse. Or it could be, like I said before, a kind word, where a soft answer sometimes can take that heat, can take that energy out. So anger is something that we all, from time to time, get stirred up, but we got to remember to keep our cool. Got to keep you cool. Another another scripture is patience can persuade a prince and soft speech can break bones. That comes from the book of Proverbs, the 25th chapter, 15th verse. Patience can persuade a prince, and soft speech can break bones. And I'm guessing from what I get from that is that if you're patient, sometimes you can persuade people by being patient, not trying to be so impatient. And sometimes when you kind of be patient and you speak to them calm, and sometimes you can just affect them in such a nice, calm way and get to the point that they feel embarrassed. They feel like, man, he really told me off. He wasn't nasty about it. She wasn't nasty about it. But they told me off pretty nice, and they made me see the errors of my ways. So sometimes speaking soft, speaking calm, have the right approach, have the right tone, have the right delivery can be just as effective as you going off on somebody and thinking you really done something. All you did, you might have made yourself feel good for about 30 seconds. But if you went off cursing and going on and acting a donkey and acting a fool, then you really need to beg that person's apology. And I had done that before. There was a time when I was a SRO at a particular school in Florence, the town I work at. And because somebody didn't like this particular teacher, I didn't like this particular teacher. When she said something to me, I went off and I was kind of nasty in the email. And then I'm telling you, for like 2 or 3 days, the Lord whipped me. You know what I mean? He whipped me. Every time I look at towards that teacher, man, I would feel guilt and shame. And finally, one day, I just had to go there and just beg her apology. Look, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I was a complete butthole, and I'm sorry. And since that day, we've been friends, lifelong friends. But hey, anger, man, it can do it to you. Let me read one more. Um, this comes from the book of James, the first chapter, the 19th through the 20th verse. So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Let me say that one more time. From the book of James, the first chapter, the 19th verse through the 20th. So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, for the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. And a lot of times we think that when somebody does us wrong, that we got to get them back. An eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. A lot of times when you're angry, it stops. Your hearing stops. You got 2 ears, but you don't hear nothing. All you heard was what they said to make you mad and to infuriate you. And then you go into I'm going to get you mode. I'm going to get you mode. I don't care what it takes, how long it takes. I'm going to get you. And a lot of times our brain function stops. It goes down to the bare minimum. Our ears get clogged up, and all we can feel is that heat and that anger and that desire to get back or have the last word and that kind of stuff. And guess what? It's not pleasing to God. So when you're angry, I will learn this lesson as a leader, also as a father, as a husband, as a person. Don't make decisions in anger. Don't say things when you are boiling hot mad, because you will say something. Sure enough, I'm sitting here and it's going to damage or possibly damage a relationship or damage that job relationship, that friendship, that family member. So don't say it. Don't say it. If you got time to walk away, take a deep breath, cool down, I encourage you to do that. It took me a long time to learn that because I was of a mindset. You say something to me, I'm right back at you. Boom, 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 boom. Or you did something crazy or stupid in my mind, I tell you, and it didn't care how I tell you, when I told you, where I told you, it didn't matter. And for a long time, I know I was hurting a lot of people's feelings and was considered to be a butthole and all this kind of stuff. Didn't care. I did not care back then. Now I do care, and I try to definitely treat people the way I want to be treated. Because yeah, I dish it, and I could take it from like the higher ups. Didn't like it all the time, but if you was my equal rank or younger than me and stuff, no, I ain't trying to hear that. I got kids your age or older than you. I'm not trying to hear that. But now, I've seen them out older age, got a little bit more wise. That look, it doesn't matter about age or anything, to a certain extent. You gotta treat people the way you want to be treated. You gotta have that. Like I said, I'm gonna keep reiterating this. It's gonna be a reoccurring theme. Your delivery, your approach, and your tone is gonna definitely be three things that's gonna help you be successful. The better you are at delivering something, the better you are at controlling your tone, and the better you are at, I always keep forgetting it, delivery, tone, and your approach. The better you are at those three things, the more successful in life you're going to be. More successful in conveying messages that you need to be conveyed, that you want, that's very important of being conveyed to someone. You're going to have a higher success rate conveying that message. If you don't work on that, you're not going to be successful. You may get through to them, but do you want to beat somebody over the head or you want to try and talk to them like a civilized, intelligent, righteous person? I prefer the latter of the two. So just gotta work on that because anger. Once you get angry, especially if you're not in the right mindset, especially if you're unbeliever, even if you are a believer, I have seen some church people be just as cruel and say just some of the craziest stuff and be like, "Wow, you sure that you saved? You sure you're a believer?" I've seen it, but like I said, I can't judge anybody because I know I have faults, and it's not my place to judge. I'm not a judge of anybody. The only person I can control is me. So I try to work on Danny. I try to pray every day. Lord, give me wisdom, give me knowledge, give me understanding, bridle my tongue, and let me be slow to anger. That is one of my go-to prayers. I try to pray every day. Let me be slow to anger because there's a time when I was quick to anger and I would say things and I didn't care, didn't lose any sleep, didn't care if you like me or not, especially at work. The job's going to get done. I've learned Marine Corps way. Marine Corps way works in the Marine Corps. That Marine Corps way doesn't always translate to civilian life. Military life doesn't always transfer to civilian life. Now, military can give you some building blocks. It can give you some tools to learn to help you, but you got to find a happy medium. You gotta find and discover where that military line starts and stops, and where the civilian line starts and stops. You gotta find a happy medium to kind of meld both of those two styles together. Because you can't come in here, you can't talk to people like you in the Marine Corps, in the Army. You just can't. You gotta learn that person's personality. You gotta learn the thing that pushes them. Some people like to be pat on the back, attaboy. Some people like to just be told a certain thing and leave them alone. Some people you got to tell two or three times. As a leader, you have to find out what pushes and what motivates your people. As a husband or as a spouse, you got to find out what your spouse, what pushes their buttons. As a father or as a mother, you got to find out some of your what you got. I got three different children, all got three different personalities. One I can talk to like this and blah 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 blah. The other one I got to talk to this. My son got to talk to this way. So none of my kids are alike. I have to have different approaches, different ways to deliver messages to them to convey certain messages I want. Sometimes I gotta get a little stern or have a little bit of heat and energy. Sometimes, and sometimes like with my son, I really don't. Yeah, he's He's even killed. He talk, he hears, yes, sir, I understand, but I still want to do da 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 da. But he's a man. I appreciate the fact that he comes and asks me because he don't have to ask me because he's a grown man, very independent. But it was a decision we talked about earlier, a life changing decision for him. He called me earlier this week, and he asked my opinion. I told him what I thought, and he listened to it. He said, "Well, let me think about it a day or two." He thought about it a day or two. He called me back. So yeah, I'm not going to do this, but I think I'm not going to do that either. I think I'm going to do what you said and try and do this, this, and this. Didn't have to do that. He's a grown man, but I'm glad he felt that he could do that. I'm glad he kept me in the loop of his life, a very serious life changing like that. And he didn't get angry with what I told him. I didn't get angry with what he told me. One thing he wanted to do, I didn't want him to do, not because it was wrong or illegal, it's because I've been in that situation. I didn't want him to go through the situation that I went through. So I was trying to guide him. And a lot of things with my children, I try to tell them. And one thing they don't seem to realize that I'm 54. They're in their 30s and 20s. I've done been there. I done seen what they've seen. I done been through some of the issues that they've seen. And sometimes when they get angry or have gotten angry, I say, look, you can be mad, you can be upset. I'm just telling you, what you're trying to do now and the way you're trying to go about it is not going to work. Well, you don't know because okay, I'm just telling you, I've been there. Like Solomon said, um, there ain't nothing new under the sun. There ain't nothing new under the sun. Same thing I did, my parents undone. Same thing that they done, their parents undone in some shape, form, or fashion. They all my kids have kids except my son. So when their kids get a certain age, I hope I'm still living so I can be like, so they can come and say, Danny, Dad, yep, you told me. I didn't believe it back then, but you told me. I try to tell you, there ain't nothing new under the sun. It may not be the same exact scenario or situations, but it's so similar that you know the answer, you know the outcome, you know what's going to work, what's not going to work because you've been through that. But it takes time. That's the natural progression in life. Some things you're gonna listen what your parents say. Some things you're gonna get angry with your parents say. But that's a natural progression. But at the end of the day, um, you can't let anger get the best of you. Anger is one of the many tools that the devil uses to stir stuff up. Because you know when you're angry, your brain doesn't function at a higher level. It functions at what I call caveman, Paleolithic man level, where it's all about fight or flight. And a lot of times it's about fighting. It ain't about fighting, running away. It's about fighting. I'm going to fight. I'm going to kick your butt. I'm going to do this. That doesn't solve anything. Now, there are some situations, there are some exceptions to the rule where there is justifiable anger. And I'm going to give you an example. Um, I'm going to give two examples: sinful anger. Then I'm going to give you righteous anger. Example of sinful anger was Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel because he was jealous of uh, God's relationship with Abel. God was more pleased with Abel's offering than he was with Cain because Cain didn't give him the best. Cain kind of did a half butt, didn't do what God wanted to do. And and Cain was upset and jealous and petty because God praised Abel's offering more than his and kind of told him that his offering wasn't up to par. So instead of being angry and taking like a man, he's going to kill Abel. And I don't know why he didn't think God did not know because God is omnipotent, knows everything, all powerful, all knowing. And of course, he was cursed, and you know the story of Cain and that kind of stuff. That is sinful anger. Now, righteous anger, an example of it is God was so disappointed with Solomon and Gomorrah. And he tried to give Solomon and Gomorrah several chances over and over and over. If you can find 100 people in there, that's worth saving. I think Abraham was asking, you won't destroy it. So he tried to find 100 people, couldn't find it. So I think the number went down. And I'm just using these numbers. I'm kind of paraphrasing. If you find 75 people, Lord, will you still save it? Okay, Abram, if you find 75 people, I'll save it. Couldn't find 75 people. If you find 50 people, and it went down, and finally it went down to one. If you can find one person in Sodom and Gomorrah, you're not disturbed. Okay, if you find one person, I will save that person. So he sent his angels to get Lot. Lot is a descendant of Abraham. And the angels came and they got Abraham and his family out of there. They told Abraham one thing only. When you leave Sodom, don't look back. If you look back, you will surely perish. And Lot and his daughters left along with Lot's wife. Never knew her name. The Bible doesn't say her name. But I guess she didn't take heed to Lot's warning and the angel's warning, which came from God. And she looked back and she instantly turned to the pillar of salt. Now, God is destroying Sodom and Gomorrah. That is an example of righteous anger because He warned them over and over and over. But they lived in such a foul and crazy life and unholy life and unrighteous life that God did what He needed to do. Same thing with the earth, Noah and the flood. God, of all the people on the planet, was so just unrighteous and evil and doing such crazy stuff. God said, I had enough. I've had enough. Noah, you're the only man in your family, the only people on this planet that I'm going to save. I'm going to give you the knowledge and the know-how to build the ark. I think it took Noah close to 100 years. He built the ark. Everybody thought he was crazy, but Noah was able to get him, his three sons, they had their wives, two of every animal. And when the great flood started, for 40 days and for 40 nights, it rained. But Noah and his family were safe inside the ark. But that was righteous anger. God was angry with the world because it had become so sinful that He was just disgusted. But the only person that was righteous and was living by God's word, was living a righteous life, was Noah and his family, and He spared Noah and his family. Now, those are examples. I told you the first example, Cain and Abel, that was sinful anger. Righteous anger is what I told you the last two stories about Sodom and Gomorrah, God's anger, and about Noah's Ark. So God doesn't mind if you're angry if it's for a good reason. And I'm gonna give you today's example. You see somebody getting beat up, or you see somebody getting taken advantage of, and you become angry. I'm not saying not physically go out there and kill them, but you become angry and you start doing stuff. You see, for instance, homeless people and someone being mistreated, and you get angry because you see that. Then you start, let's say, a foundation to help to improve homeless people or improve situations where you see people getting taken advantage of. You start a legal and a righteous organization or some kind of program that's going to help them. Your anger is fueling your passion, your motivation uh, is heading in a correct direction, a positive direction, a righteous direction. When you use anger and you do stuff and become violent and do stuff that's against the law and the stuff that's just totally evil, that's God's not pleased with that. But if you're angry because somebody was raped or somebody was killed or somebody was murdered, and you're angry about that. That's righteous anger. But you're just angry because somebody beat you in a card game or somebody um, took your wife or somebody took your husband or somebody stole your car and you're angry. And you got there and you just start doing crazy stuff and start living unrighteous, doing all kind of crazy stuff, breaking the law, and then just hurt people because you were done wrong. And you start hurt people, becoming a womanizer, becoming drunkard, or becoming addicted to drugs, anything like that. God's not pleased with that. He's not feeling that kind of anger. A lot of times we get drawn into that. If something is done wrong by us, or someone does us wrong, or we feel like we got the short end of the stick, then we're gonna get angry and we do silly and unrighteous and crazy things. God is not pleased with that. So that is my 2 cents on this word anger, which is the first word in his 12-part series called Slaying the Giant. And the way that you slay anger, man, is you pray for God for peace. You pray to God for understanding. You pray to God to to bridle your tongue and make you slow to anger. You read these scriptures that I read to you. That comes from the book of James, the first chapter, 19th and 20th verse. The book of Proverbs, which you know is my favorite book. Proverbs, the 25th chapter, the 15th verse, and Proverbs, the 15th chapter, and the first verse. These are scriptures that you read over and over and over, and you try to um, pray to God for understanding, for slow to anger, for things that's going to help you be able to keep your anger in check. And those are the ways that you combat anger. Those are the ways that you slay that giant whose name is anger. So check me out on Friday. I got the second part of the Slaying the Giant series. I'm not sure what the word is. I don't have it in front of me, but I will definitely be back with that. So check me out at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on my channel, The Road to Wisdom. And this is the first time, if this is the first time you ever laying eyes on me or ever hearing about this channel, then I'm going to ask you to please subscribe. When you subscribe, I want you to share this link with somebody else. You tell that person to share that link with somebody else. And you tell that person to share that link with somebody else. And I want to grow this channel. Right now, I'm at about 1,500 subscribers. I want to reach 10,000 by the end of the year. I can only do that with your help. So tell everybody, tell your church members, tell your friends, your girlfriends, your boyfriends, your husbands, your wives, anybody that got a device, a cell phone, a laptop, a desktop, send it to them. Let them watch it. Let them subscribe. They ain't going to watch me every day. Just hit that subscribe button. Boom. That's all I need. It's going to take less than a second to hit the subscribe button. It ain't going to cost you nothing. Hit the subscribe button. Also, hit that notification bell because every time I upload something, any material, you will be notified on whatever device you're using. Also, hit that thumbs up button. The thumbs up button helps with the YouTube algorithm. Don't ask me how. I'm not all that computer literate, so I don't know, but I know the more likes you get, the more subscribers I get, that helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. I get more views. That helps a brother out. Also, leave me a comment. The reason why I want you to leave me a comment is because I want to hear what you got to say. I want to hear constructive criticism. I want to hear whatever I'm talking about, whether or not you feeling it, whether or not you think it's right, whether or not you think it's wrong, whether you have an opinion about it one way or the other. Make sure you leave me a comment because I read all the comments and I respond back to them. Also, last but not least, watch my video from start to finish. Also, that helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Don't ask me how. I just know that it does. So, like I said, I'll be at part 2 of the Slaying the Dragon series, which is a 12-part series. Word number 2 will be this Friday at 7 a.m. here, Eastern Standard Time. That's when I upload. I'll send you all the links, everyone that's following me. But if you are not have that link, make sure you punch in the Word to Wisdom on YouTube. You'll see me. Hit on that and check me out. So until then, y'all have a fantastic day and stay blessed.